Welcome, everybody. We're really excited today to jump into event management and operations here with a couple of Citizens Business Bank and Ontario Reign alum, which is a huge, huge win. And now they're jumping off all around the country and leading very, very successful careers and here to share their wisdom with us. So our ASCA family, our students, our candidates, our audience members, and even just our colleagues around the industry looking for some great content. We're excited to have you joining us today. Don't forget to visit us at www.asca or ascacademy.com to learn more about our program. But I want to jump right into it. And Matt, I'm going to start with you. Just give us a little background about yourself and how you ended up in Nashville.
Sure. So I ended up, this is actually my second career. My original goal was to be a naval aviator. And I went to Virginia Tech on a full ride from the Navy. And then I kind of had to switch gears in the middle of flight school. That's a long story for another day. But I wanted to continue my education because I was kind of still in academia mode in flight school, and then previously the year before in Virginia Tech. So I looked for a program because I was in Florida, I was in Pensacola, and I was looking for a program that was going to, get me in the sports industry and all that. And I found the USF program, University of South Florida in Tampa. It was a brand new program, so I was actually a part of the inaugural class there. So that's how I got my start. My first job in sports was I was an usher, a part-time usher during events at the on-campus arena at USF. And then after my usher shift was over, I would change into different clothes and do overnight conversions as an operations guy. So I kind of got my hands dirty from the get-go. And then I worked for the Lightning for my residency during school. And then my first job out of grad school was actually at Citizens Business Bank Arena in Ontario, which is now known as Toyota Arena. And Sully, Mike, actually was my boss. He hired me out of grad school. And we still keep in touch and all that kind of stuff. It's been great. He's been great, of course. And then that's where I met Bo as well, and James at Citizens Business Bank Arena. We had a lot of interesting times at CBBA, a lot of different small promoters, and then also a few big shows here and there, and a lot of different sports. We had rain hockey, we had indoor soccer, we had lingerie football. We had a lot of different things going on. So from there, this is actually a pretty cool story. I actually got a message on LinkedIn from the Sacramento Kings asking if I knew of anybody interested in an event manager role. And they were fixing to open a brand new arena in Sacramento. And that's a once in a lifetime opportunity for most everybody in this industry. And so I jumped on it. I talked to them and ended up getting the job. Moved up to Sacramento, was up there for 2 years. Opened Golden One Center in downtown Sacramento. And then I also worked in Sleep Train Arena, formerly known as Arco Arena, which is about 40 years old now. It's still there, but it's actually being used as a COVID testing center right now. But I was there for 2 years, and then I got the opportunity to make the jump into stadiums. I got recruited to come down to Los Angeles Football Club, which is a MLS franchise that came into the fray in 2018. They're in their third season now, and I helped open Bank of California Stadium, and that's when I went from event management into operations. I was event manager in Sacramento, and then went to director of ops in LAFC and Bank of California Stadium. Was there for just shy of 2 seasons. I really enjoyed the jump to operations. Then I got the opportunity to kind of switch gears and go back out towards where my family is in Texas and North Carolina as a kind of halfway point here in Nashville. And I've been here since September of 2019. And I'm senior director of operations now. So I've kind of gone unconventionally and kind of hopped around and still be able to climb the ladder, but definitely blessed to be in the position that I'm in, all because of Sully. So
Love it. Awesome, yeah. Matt. Thanks for sharing that.
Yep.
Oh, I'm going to jump to you. Same thing. Give us a little background how you ended up at Staples Center.
Okay. Robert Fornine, go by Bo. I grew up in Southern California. Honestly, these guys already spoken on it. We all met at CBBA. I heard they were hosting a Laker game. I wanted to go to a Laker game. had no idea what AEG was, what it was doing. And I showed up to try and buy tickets. And one of the guys there was the director of operations. He's like, "Hey, do you need a job?" I'm like, I don't really know. Sure, I just want to see the Lakers, you know? So I took him up on it, and I got in there just kind of as they were opening. They were hiring a bunch of people, and I got in there with their conversion staff, and that was kind of the start of it. It was something that I loved, and it just became a way of life. You know, I've held almost every position in operations except for Zamboni driver. We've done conversions. We've basketball floor, hockey.
They don't trust you with the ZAM, right?
they're you know, you're one side or the other there, you know?
I actually started Zamboni training this week, so.
Oh, all right.
Okay. I did.
That's a lot of equipment. Don't mess anything up, man.
I won't.
But yeah, so that's got me going and got me in there. And then, like I said, I moved up and became conversion supervisor and then operations manager. And then kind of at the same time, they were reopening the forum, and I had got word that they needed some help. So I was kind of doing a little double duty at the time, and just continuing to grow and learn about live events and things of that nature. And did that for a couple of years. And one day, Matt, you know, showed me that there was an opening, something I might want to take a look at. And I talked to Staples Center, and then that's how I got down there. And I was event operations manager for Staples Center, which is a little different. All these words kind of mix together, but I guess it kind of just depends on what building you're in, what your title actually means. So I was doing that, and I was running the operations for the event operations there for a few years, and that was going great. And earlier this year, actually, an opportunity came up for me to leave and go open a building in another state, in another sport. And I got close to it. I got really close to it. And when it came down to it, before I leave, some guys pulled me in a room and said, "Hey, can we counter? You know, we'd like to keep you around." And that got me into my current role of director of operations at Staples Center.
Fantastic, Bo. Well, we're thrilled to have you, obviously, on the AEG side of things. Mike, obviously, you're responsible a little bit for giving these guys their first gig or early gigs. Tell us a little bit about your background and where you're at now.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much credit for any of that, but yeah. So I went to the University of Massachusetts Amherst and studied sport management. UMass is one of the kind of preeminent programs in the country for that. While I was in college, I did a bunch of internships. Interned for the Galaxy, interned for the San Diego Sports Arena, interned for a marathon running company called Elite Racing, and kind of was just like testing the waters a little bit, trying to figure out what I liked. And it wasn't until I kind of interned for the Galaxy. I interned in their sales department at the time, and I enjoyed that. But what I enjoyed most about it was the kind of the game day experience, the live events, the bringing guests into the building, all the different activations, things that were happening with that. So I kind of realized that maybe that was more of the direction I wanted to go in. So when I was a senior in college, AEG at the time was doing this facility leadership development program that was kind of pitched like you would travel around and go to a bunch of different arenas, you know, probably in LA and do different things. But I applied for that at the time. I was really focused on it because I knew AEG was a great company. They had all these properties all over the world, all over the country. It was really exciting. And I ended up getting the job, and they placed me in Ontario, where I started out effectively as like the secondary event person. So I reported to an event manager, and I kind of was in charge of some of the smaller events, some of the stuff that was in the club, or some of the stuff we would do in the lobby, you know, lesser attended events. And I just worked really hard. One of the great things about starting in a building in minor league sports in general, and I think you know this from other people, and I was told it in school, is that smaller staff, you know, you get more experience doing different kind of things. So I really tried to kind of put my head down and try to learn as much about the business I could, pick people's brains, didn't say no to any sort of, you know, job or anything anybody asked me to do. And, you know, it was supposed to be like a 6-month program. They pushed it to 8 months, and then they eventually they hired me on as permanent, kind of once I fulfilled that. I worked there for a couple years under two different event managers. And then, at that time, my predecessor kind of moved on to open another building in Northern California. And they offered me kind of the head event person role. So I did that for a couple months, realized that running a whole building by yourself, doing all the events is no fun. So that was when that's when I hired Matt, which turned out to be a good decision. So kind of at that point, I was kind of ready maybe to start looking for some other stuff. My family had kind of moved away from California, so that I had family there initially. They ended up in Louisville, Kentucky, and AG at the time also managed the KFC Yum Center in Louisville. So it always kind of been in the back of my mind, if a job opened up there, that was something I really want to do. Eventually came up. I actually didn't get it the first time around, which was kind of disappointing. The second time the job came up, I think I got called before the job was even posted. So I've been in Louisville here for 5 years now. It's been exciting. We were supposed to open a new USL soccer stadium in April, and the league has just kind of given the go-ahead that they're going to start in July. So we've all been kind of doing double duty down there. So I've been down there working, and we're actually opening a track facility in town as well. So we're now ASM Global, but our footprint in the city is growing. We're starting to manage 3 buildings in town. So there's been some exciting opportunities that have come with that. Well, that's where I'm at now. I'm with my family and in kind of a growing market for our company. And I know it's an uncertain time, but I'm still optimistic and excited about kind of what the future holds for us.
Love it. Love it. Thanks, Mike. All right. So we're going to dive into, I think our audience, especially those looking to break into the industry, their first question is going to be, what the heck's the difference between event management and building operations? And I know, Bo, you already teased it a little bit. It matters probably most wherever the heck you are. But Matt, I'm going to let you take a swing at it and try to differentiate the two for us and give us at least a starting base.
Best way to describe event management is think of a hub of a wheel. You're directing traffic and logistics and planning, and anything that comes up that's unplanned always has to go through you. If something goes wrong, you have to make the decision split second, and you have to know the resources you have at hand anywhere in the building all at the same time. You have to know what's going on every second of every day in all the locations across the whole building. You have to know the building backwards and forwards. You have to know what you're capable of. You have to know when you can say yes, which is hopefully most of the time, but then also when to say no. And you're the liaison when, a concert or a sporting event or something like that comes in and they need something and they need one, person, one point of contact for the whole building, and that's you. And ultimately you run the show from start to finish. So that's sort of a little snapshot of event management. Building operations is preventative maintenance. It is setups, tear downs, fixing things that break, which is imminent. Every second of every day, there's opportunity for things to break. But also it's understanding your building, in more in depth than what you get as an event manager. And you have an opportunity to hone in on specific areas, whether it's plumbing, whether it's electrical, whether it's, operations and conversions and things like that, changing the building and molding the building. And then also in operations, you get an opportunity to look at capital expenditures in terms of what you want to spend your budget on and improving the building. You get to be a part of the process with that. And honestly, event management doesn't exist without building operations. They work hand in hand. Those two departments have to have a good working relationship. Otherwise, it makes things very difficult, and therefore, it makes it difficult for the promoter, the artist, whoever's in the building that's renting the building out. It makes it very difficult to get things done quickly. And I'm sure we'll get into the lack of patience that a lot of promoters and artists have. And they want things now. They don't want it in 5 minutes. They want it now. And so if there's not a level of trust and mutual respect between event management and building ops, it's a tough day. So.
Awesome. Well said, Matt. Mike, I'm going to turn to you. I would love to hear your insights as you look or you have an opening on your team, what are you looking for when you're trying to bring that person in? Obviously, you've found something in Matt and Bo here, but what are some of the traits you're looking for somebody to kind of take a spot on your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think most important for me is kind of a can-do attitude. I think our industry, especially the departments that we represent, are industries where you have to be flexible. You have to be willing to put in long hours, weird hours, overnight hours. You have to be ready to be thrown something completely last minute that you were not prepared for, that you still have to pull off. So if you're not ready or feel like you're capable of handling that kind of atmosphere, like that, you're not someone who's going to work well in those departments. So I think openness to new experiences and new challenges, and the ability to embrace challenges is really key. Hardworking. I mean, the operations teams are the hardest working people in the building. They're the people behind the scenes that don't get the glory, but as Matt said, the events don't happen without them. They don't. Bo's team and Matt's teams have to do crazy overnight conversions. Sometimes we had an event at the Yum Center in March. March of last year, where we basically had one show and the loadout was 3 a.m, and literally the load in for the next show started at 3:01 in the morning. So, and operations and housekeeping and kind of the back of house people that you don't see are the people who make that happen. It's and I just tried to up front. I remember when I interviewed Matt, I'm just like, it's weird hours, it's long hours, it's holidays. It's a lot of grunt work and behind the scenes stuff, but I think all three of us love it, and that's why we're doing it. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to have a passion for it to work in this industry, period. I think if in any department, but especially kind of events and operations, if you don't like it and you don't enjoy coming to work and having every day be different, then this is probably not necessarily the job for you. But for us, we've all been working in it a long time, and we love it and have moved around the country to keep doing it. So, and it's exciting when you see kind of young people join your team who you can see have that passion and thirst to kind of grow. And, that's what I'm looking for sure.
Love it. I got to ask this as a sales manager and a guy who worked at Staples Center this year and oversaw our group department at a time where we needed to sell a lot more group tickets, and that meant a lot more things at the venue. And Matt, you hit on it a little bit in terms of promoters and wanting this, right? We're all in the yes business and trying to deliver yeses, but obviously when I go to sell an asset, I'm not thinking about how much time it takes you to clean the ice or get the next thing set up for the refs to come out and check and inspect the goals and everything else that goes on in a run of show. But give me a little bit of advice you would give to a green sales rep trying to make the big sale or please his group leader or please his boss. But what's some advice that will help him prevent stubbing his toe as he moves forward?
For me, and I remember kind of when I was taking over as the event manager, the one thing I always requested from kind of the sales was just like, be upfront with me. Like, if you've got something you want to do, like we're in the business of making what you want to do happen. We like new ideas. We like trying exciting things, but don't side with it. Come yourself, come through whoever your designated representative with the building is, and just like have a conversation. We're much more willing to work with you and try to make something happen if we're all kind of working to the same place off the bat. And I remember, there's sometimes, again, where Matt said you don't like to say no, but sometimes you have to. I know something I used to do was basically I'd go through the whole season calendar, and there were certain games we just wouldn't allow certain things. Unfortunately, it's just like you can't do a post game skate, you can't do a post game kick around tonight. We have a tight conversion, and the salespeople have to be understanding of that. But we're not trying to say no to you. We want to say yes, but the more that you can, I think involving the building in these plans soon is important, because a lot of times the building operations people have good ideas or the event people how to facilitate some of your plans to sell. So I never liked being surprised last minute with something that I knew I had to say yes to. And we're much happier to do it when we have weeks and months to plan it. So I'm sure Matt and Bo would agree with that for sure.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, let's get into some examples. You guys all have rich backgrounds, have worked with some great promoters, have worked with some smaller shows that you guys alluded to. Give me a favorite horror story or favorite story of something really working well. Because obviously the magic of live events is it's live. You know, things can go right, things can go wrong. So tell us some ways that you saved an event or had to think quickly on your feet.
Who wants to go first?
I want to hear Bo's story.
Yeah, I'll jump in for one. So
Staples Center is a well-oiled machine, so I want to hear that story.
this one was tough. So we hadn't had any big Laker games in a number of years. This is the Kobe's last game. Okay, this is his last game. They infamously had the two numbers put into the court. So it was 8 on one side, 24 on the other. Well, this court had been in play at this point for a number of years. Every year the floor goes back. It gets sanded. It gets repainted. So every year you lose a little bit on it. You lose a little bit on it. So after multiple years, we have 2 new pieces that we're trying to fit in one night. Well, no one had ever done it. So it's not the numbering. It wasn't out of order. It's the thickness that came up. So we get through. I believe the Clippers played the night before because this is the last game of the season. The Kings were done. I'm not sure if they're making the playoffs that year. I think they were. And we go, everyone goes home as soon as the game, conversion comes in. Everyone's like, all right, we're going to be back here at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. just to go with all the circus that's going to surround Kobe's last game. I mean, they're blocking off streets and there's banners and there's these crazy little like transformers that were remote controls that are on people's chairs. It was just ridiculous, not to mention all the people that are trying to get in. So around, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning, my phone just starts going off and not the normal going off because these guys know you get emails and phone calls and texts all throughout the night, but when something's different. It's just a little more. It's dancing around. And I get up and what's going on? The floor doesn't fit. Well, what do you mean the floor doesn't fit? Like it fits in the frame, but it's higher. So if you're going and you're dribbling up the floor and you bounce a basketball, it's going to kick off. And this is on both sides of the floor. So immediately everyone's just going, oh, wow, what are we going to do? The game's, what are we looking at? 12, 18 hours away. So, let's get the carpenters in. Let's get the painters in. Let's get them going. There was management that was out there and with sanders and on their hands and knees just trying to get the floor so that edge was gone. We're just trying to get it just so the ball's not going to hit it, and it's off both sides of the floor. And this lasted, the Laker girls were out there rehearsing, and we're still working on the floor, and this is just before doors. And luckily, no one but the people who were working on it, and obviously, the staff that was in the building knew about it, and the game went off, and Kobe went off, and it was a very stressful, but looking back, it was a great day to be a part of.
That's phenomenal. That's a great story. Thanks, Bo. Matt or Mike, you guys want to chip in with one?
Yeah, I'll chip in. So I'm not going to give names on this one, but it's important to understand the challenges that this presented. So in Sacramento, when I was an event manager in Sacramento, we had a very important event for our building come through. And it was a very well-known, worldwide known artist. And we had been planning for this for a long time. And we knew this was coming and all that kind of stuff. But it just didn't hit us until, boom, they hit the ground running, load-in started, 4 a.m, whatever it was. So the request that we got and that we knew about that we ultimately had to kind of get around was that this particular artist was a vegetarian/vegan and was very passionate about not having any sort of meat or any sort of food that came from an animal anywhere near his world, his compound. There you go. I said his, so there you go. That narrows the field a little bit. But they were passionate, and they will stop the show. They will, they'll throw out all kinds of possibilities of, if you don't do this, then we will this. So we just had all of our kitchens are near the dressing room, and if they, here's an example, if they smelled meat or anything, then there was going to be a problem. So, I mean, we put up, we got some velour drape, which is thicker stuff, which is normally a sound baffle, but I mean, at least we put something up to make it seem like we were trying. We rerouted all the people that were pulling food on, those tall warmers and the tray carts and all that kind of stuff. They had to walk, 320 degrees around, just to get to where they were trying to go, just because their compound was blocked off. And then they had all kinds of last minute stuff with an activation on the concourse that no one knew about. And so, but the funny part was, a lot of his crew didn't necessarily agree with that. So, I was kind of walking around the concourse once doors were open, and I saw a couple of the guys that I worked with throughout the morning and throughout the day and throughout the night that were in a corner, around the corner, hiding, looking around like this, shoveling down a hot dog. So, I mean, there's just, I can't make this stuff up. But that particular artist was very adamant that, anything in our building that came from an animal couldn't be there. At first it was, you can't sell anything. And we're like, no. We need to talk about this first. But that was a challenge for a lot of different people. That wasn't just challenging for me. That was a challenge for the entire building and for everybody working that day, because normal operations and normal ways of doing things had to be completely flipped upside down. But luckily we had a little bit of time to plan, but the actual execution of it was just a little challenging at first, but ultimately we came through, and the event went off without a hitch, and people went home and had fun and all that. And same goes for us. So.
Awesome. Mike, you want to throw in one, or you want me to move on to the next question?
I got two positives and a funny one from multiple times, actually. The two events that really kind of stand out to me were we did the Yum Center did the Muhammad Ali Memorial Service, which was just kind of an incredible thing to host, just an honor to be a part of, but also just extremely challenging with all of the moving pieces, government agencies that were involved. President Clinton came to and spoke at the service. So, the Secret Service was involved, and we had to, there were certain access points that even the event managers couldn't get to, and basically the Secret Service took over your building. But still, just the ability to kind of, for what it meant for this city and what he means for this city, and just packing and, all the celebrities and dignitaries. And it was just kind of a really moving time. And it happened really quickly. It was always kind of his hope to have his service there, but, he had passed away, and literally the next week we were having it, and with crazy meetings and just, moving heaven and earth to kind of make it happen. But that'll be, one of those ones that you remember forever, is that you were part of and you worked on. I remember during chair strike, chair strikes usually, everyone's frustrated, people are tired, but I remember I went up and I picked up the chair that President Clinton had sat in. I don't remember doing anything with it, but I thought it was kind of cool at the time. But and then there was one at CBBA that was pretty cool. We used to be, we did a lot of rehearsal spaces just because of the proximity to LA a lot. We did commercials, we did TV shoots, we did rehearsals for bands. And the one, and Bo was there. I don't think Matt was there but Matt wasn't there at the time. Bo was there, but we did, an Eagles rehearsal with Glenn Fry when he was still alive. And I remember basically watching a giant 20,000 person, concert with 10 people in the building, and just how cool and kind of unique that experience was. I mean, soundcheck is one thing where you get to kind of be in the building, but they went through their whole set. You got to see them do, every great song that they have. And just how awesome that experience was for me. And then kind of a crazy one was we did, I won't name the name, but I'm sure people could probably figure out who I was talking about. I've had two different events with this person, both of which have been memorable for different reasons. The first one, it's a comedian who a big HBO special that went into it, and as as Matt and Bo can tell you, nothing complicates an event more than TV. So you advance a specific event, you have to revance the event with TV people. But anyway, so with TV, there's just so many moving pieces. You're called in 800 different directions all day. You don't basically sit down because you're needed by one person or another. I remember late in the days leading up to it, I got an email saying, "Hey, can we bring in a live tiger for this event?" I'm like, and they were not joking. It actually ended up happening. So we had to go figure out the proper procedures and people who needed to sign off on bringing a live tiger into the event. But anyway, so the day is just going, and we're busy, we're setting chairs or whatever, and I get a call from the promoter, and he's like, "Yeah, how long can we hold doors and stuff? Because we don't know where the artist is." And apparently nobody knew where this person was for hours and hours and hours. And we're just not sure what we're doing. This is supposed to be a huge HBO live special. Patrons are getting antsy, and we don't want to ruin the set, so the openers aren't really going anymore. And eventually the artist comes back and performs a wild set. And it's pretty funny if watching it in hindsight, but just the challenges that pulled off. And that one's also memorable for me because I'm actually I got a promotion in the credits. I'm credited as the building general manager in the credits of the HBO special.
Love it.
Got me one there too. So yeah,
you were.
Yeah, I'm credited in that special too.
Yeah. But then I moved to Louisville, and I have the same artist, and we're just going through the day. It's not TV. It's just like, the openers are going, and I get a call from the promoter, and he's like, "Yeah, no one knows where the artist is again." I remember having to go to my GM, and I'd be like, "They don't know where he is." And this was, and just nobody kind of knew. It was not our normal promoter or whatever. And eventually my GM had to go and kind of like force their hand, and eventually we had to like cancel the show and refund money. But people got to see a bunch of good owners and got their money back. But that's the only time I've had one fully cancel on me day of. I know that happens sometimes, but that's never fun when you have to load in and load out a show and you didn't even really get to do the show. But
that's amazing.
There's some good and bad stories, but it was just funny because two of my most memorable kind of events that were hard and interesting were both with the same artists. So.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. I'm going to do some homework and do some Googling to try to figure out where this is. One of my favorite pieces of content that I always will, no matter where it shows up, if it's in my Twitter feed or Instagram or on a website, I'll always stop to watch it. And it's just the conversion, right? From at Staples Center, you go from an LA Kings game at noon to a Laker game at 7:30. Can you walk me through what it actually means to convert a building? Like, what's the process? Other than time-lapse video, that's all I've ever seen, and I've worked in sports for 12 years. So open my eyes a little bit.
I'm going to jump back to the guy who kind of showed me how to do this, and these guys will remember. He used to just describe it as organized chaos. That's what it is. There's groups, and there's probably at Staples Center that there's a little more than other places just because of the time crunch usually, and the amount of double headers. But you're talking about 6 groups, probably of 4 or 5 guys, and everyone knows, hey, this is kind of your quadrant. You're here, and you're gonna hit the seats. If we're coming out of hockey, we're covering ice. That's the first thing we do. We got to get that covered. Typically, as soon as we get Bailey out of there, we're getting our dry cut, and we're covering the floor, and then we get into it. Glasses coming down all at the same time. We're opening up down aisles. Bombs are going depending on what needs to be open or closed. The seating units need to be adjusted from basketball to hockey, and then actually get the basketball floor out there. You get that going, get all the floor chairs, get the benches converted, get baskets up, get baskets made sure that they are all squared away, leveled. It's a lot going on, and you would probably, if you were to come out and see it, you would see everything your first time. But I would say if you ever have the chance, I would recommend doing it because I think it's something that's fun, and it's part of the reason why I still do it because I like doing it.
I love that. Real question or clarifying from start to finish, from the time you get Bailey off the ice to the time you're ready for somebody to come out and take their first warm up layup. What are we talking about?
Our record for it, if we're going from hockey to basketball, is an hour and 50 minutes.
No way. I don't believe
Yeah.
that. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, it's 6 forklifts. It's about 60 guys. It's nuts. And that's giving them the to be able to come out and warm up and shoot for the night game. It's organized chaos, definitely.
Heart rate is just going up and up and up right now.
It's awesome.
All right. Well, obviously, our industry has been significantly impacted, obviously, with the current pandemic, right? Live events is on hold right now. You guys have the unenviable task of figuring out, well, what does our venue look like on the other side of this? How are we approaching it? What are some of your key takeaways or areas of focus that you guys are trying to zero in on to make sure we can welcome back fans, obviously, safely? As well as our players or promoter or artists that go into our industry. Anybody want to take a swing at kind of some of the things they're zeroing in on to try to hone and create this new environment for our fans?
Well, I mean, I know personally, I've actually been in tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. I've got a meeting with our GMs actually over at the soccer stadium, and we're going to start walking through some security protocols, what we're going to do with the entrances to bring people into the building and still social distance. So I know that our general manager, he oversees the Yum Center and the new soccer stadium, Lynn Family Stadium. He has to present to the governor's office our different plans for, different levels of events, whether that be soccer with no fans or soccer with 33% or 50% or whatever it is. We're submitting proposals about how we would do that at entrances, how we would do it at concession stands, how you do it in stands. I've heard some interesting and promising stuff about different ticketing platforms' abilities to kind of social distance within the platform when you sell tickets. Believe me, I'm not an expert in that. I just am interested in and hope in the capabilities of it. But it's going to be a lot of work, and there's a lot of unknowns. We're trying to do as much as we can. I know that I've been down at the soccer stadium. PPE obviously is required. We're getting temperature checked as we come in. We're being asked specific questions about who we've been in contact with and if we're developing any symptoms. Face masks are required at all times. So those are like the bare minimum stuff that we're doing now. With soccer, now that they've announced that they're having the season, it looks like we're definitely going to have games in the arena. It's a little bit more unclear kind of what that's going to look like for us going forward. But I know that we're working on similar protocols and procedures and implementations about, we were doing some exploring about possibly hosting a couple different various events. And I know we got to figure out how we can do it and the safest way to do it. So it's a work in progress, but I know our team here in Louisville is trying to be as proactive as possible so that the minute that we're given the okay that we can come back with or without fans, preferably obviously with fans, that we're ready and we have everything in place and planned and signed off on, that there's not a lag between when we're given the okay and okay, here's another month. Now we have to go back and plan. We want to be ready, that day or very soon after to kind of go back to normal. But it's a work. It's constant meetings, it's constant phone calls and plannings and updating stuff. And I'm sure Matt and Bo are doing the exact same right now.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Bo or Matt, on that topic?
I mean, no, it's like you said, we were going on that probably. I mean, COVID hit, and I think we had the first 2 weeks where we probably said, oh, this is a little vacation. I mean, it was scary, but at least it brought us some time away from work and to reconnect with family. But ever since that, we realized, wow, this is much bigger than I guess any of us had kind of expected or seen. It's been working on trying to get to reopen and whatever that looks like and whatever it takes to make that happen.
Awesome. Well, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to hear your stories, to hear the hard work that you guys put into this industry. And certainly as a dopey sales guy on this side, it's phenomenal to know just how hard you work to produce our events and allow us to showcase these to our fans. And you certainly give me a ton of hope knowing that we'll be back and we'll be live, because we have great minds like yourselves, looking and trying to solve these problems and solve these challenges that we're facing. So with that being said, on behalf of our audience, on behalf of the ASCA community, thank you, Bo, Mike, Matt, for joining us today. And thank you guys so much. Go ASCA.
Thanks, Evan.
Thanks, Evan.